everyone. I'm Gemma Hickey, the author of Almost Feral. Certainly a pleasure to participate in Ochre Fest this year. I'm going to read an excerpt from my book called The Good Priest, and I've decided to read in the location of the spot where I ended my walk across Newfoundland, here at the Mount Cashel Memorial, to pay tribute to survivors of religious institutional abuse everywhere. I hope you enjoy it. You're not going to believe this, but it happened. I have to tell the bishop, said the good priest. As he leaned in closer, I could see pools of tears forming in his deep blue eyes. As I sat in his office across from him, I remembered years before when I went to the florist shop just down the road from his parish and ordered a single red rose to be delivered to him at the rectory. I loved fresh flowers. It wasn't unusual for me to show up and surprise loved ones with them. My response to the hardships in my life has always manifested through acts of impulsive and joyous rebellion. I was thrilled when he referenced the rose in his homily at Mass that evening. He told parishioners that he placed it on the dining room table in the rectory so that everyone who passed by could see its beauty. He said the rose was a sign from God because he received it on the feast day of St. Teresa, the little flower. She was the saint I prayed to after that. Her feast day, I discovered, was on my birthday. Every single time I said a novena to her, I saw a red rose on the final day. The first time I laid eyes on him, I was hooked. His dark, wavy hair dreamily shaped his polished face, and his angelic voice resounded throughout the church. When it came time for his homily, instead of hiding behind a podium, he delivered it in front of the altar. His youthful manner was as warm as his smile. I want to be just like him, I thought to myself. I wanted to be a priest when I was little, and even though I knew I couldn't be one because I was a girl, I still felt called to God. I remember waking up in the middle of the night and singing out to my maternal grandmother, who was fast asleep in the next room. Nan, I feel like the Holy Spirit has grabbed hold to me, and I'm going to do something special. You're a special child, Gemma, but if you don't go back to sleep, your grandmother's going to grab hold of you. Mind you, there'll be no room left for the Holy Spirit then. Whenever she made homemade bread, she'd roll a handful of dough together to make a tiny bun just for me. Baking was like a religious ritual in her house. Her bread was so good it may as well have been bread from heaven, manna, as it's called. She'd take out her tiny sherry glass from her special cupboard on a separate wall in the kitchen and pour me a little cup of apple juice. I'd use the bun and the juice to play Mass at her kitchen table. She'd say the words with me, correcting me if I misspoke. The transubstantiation had less to do with God and more to do with the love between us, because it changed me. The good priest wasn't long out of the seminary. It was too soon for him to be burdened by the sins of his church. That would come later. Charming and handsome, hordes of people gathered around him at the back of the church after Mass. But whenever I'd approach, he'd part the crowd and make way for me. I'd leap into his arms and he would spin me around as if we were ballroom dancing. Was I a princess and he my knight in shining armor? I never wanted to be a princess, but I did want to be rescued. I was in a lot of pain back then. Before the good priest moved to another parish, he contacted a social worker. The principal at my school called me into his office, and the social worker was waiting for me there. I felt like her piercing eyes could see right through me. My body clenched like a fist when she asked me questions about my living situation. Who will take care of my father once I'm gone, I feared. When school was over that day, I immediately went to the church and confronted the priest. He tried to explain to me that he was obligated by law to report what I told him, but I felt like he was just trying to cross me off his list before he left. I couldn't have been more wrong. Even though I no longer saw him, I thought of him often, especially after my suicide attempt landed me on the psychiatric ward at the Health Sciences Center. I had just undergone months of intense therapy to try to change my sexuality. I had a second chance at life, and I was going to take it. I decided to write him and tell him I was gay. His sister hand-delivered his response. I remember reading his letter as I sat at the tiny desk in my hospital room. There was no judgment, only love in his words. He ended his letter with, "Don't let your fear paralyze you." It moved me. No one knew this at the time, and even I had forgotten about it. But before my suicide attempt, I had written another letter at Christmas time to someone else. Dear God, I'm so sad. I'm struggling with a lot right now, and there's too much pain in this world. I wish I could do something to change things. I go to Mass once a day and pray each morning and at bedtime, but I don't have any answers. I read my Bible daily, but I'm not really sure that it reflects the reality of people living in this world today. No offense. I feel called to you, yet I don't know where to find you. Sometimes I go to the chapel next to the palliative care unit in St. Clair's Hospital. I found it when I was walking with my pop up and down the hallway before he died of cancer. The lights are never on, and it's really quiet there. One time I was crying so hard that I got down on my knees in front of the statue of Mary the Virgin Mother and begged her to take my pain away. But she looked like she was in her own kind of pain, so I don't blame her for not answering. Ever since I was little, I knew you had a plan for me. I could feel it in my heart. I meant to do something great, but I don't know what it is. I talked to my friend, the priest, and he said you'd reveal it to me when the time was right. I'm really grateful for him. I wish I could pay him back for everything he's done for me. I had to move in with my dad, and he hasn't been the same since his parents died. Come to think of it, I haven't either. They took good care of us. His drinking is worse than it's ever been. He destroyed the house, and his sisters had to come clean it up so I could live there. Father called the social worker, but that just made me mad. I can't leave my dad and go back with my mom because I'm worried my dad will die. I'm trying to make the best of it, seeing as how it's your birthday. I put up the tree in the dining room and the lights in the front window, just like Nan showed me. But he just sleeps a lot. The lights are pretty, and I thought it would cheer him up, but he hasn't left his bedroom. And there's one other thing. I have a big crush on my friend Erin, and I don't know how to get rid of it. I don't want you to hate me, so I could really use your help right now. I wish you could send me a sign. Love, Gemma. I rolled the letter up so it would fit into an empty Coca-Cola bottle, tightened the cap, and threw it off a bridge. I waited until the current from the river swept it away. I walked back to my house on the old railway bed and never looked back. 12 years later, on the good priest's birthday, I told him I'd visit him on the weekend to drop off his gift. He was now a parish priest on the southern shore, less than an afternoon's drive away. I actually have a gift for you, he said in a mysterious tone. But it's your birthday, I replied. What is it? You'll see when you get here. I was intrigued, and by the time Friday came, I couldn't wait to hit the road. When I arrived, he greeted me at the door and handed me an envelope. I started to open it quickly. Be careful with it, he said, as he took the empty envelope from me. I want you to know how much you've given to me and to those of us who've known you. Confused by his comments, I proceeded to unravel the discolored piece of paper gently with both hands, and was shocked and embarrassed to discover it was the letter I'd written to God. The good priest told me that a fisherman found the bottle on the beach. Most of the words were faded, but the priest's name was still clearly legible, so the fisherman brought it to him right away. That bottle floated out to sea and traveled for 12 years until it reached him. By that time, he and I had become close friends. I was over Erin and the other girl crushes that followed, and I came out to my friends and family. Dad was sober and Mom remarried. I was back in university after I finally admitted to my parents, with the help of the good priest, that a priest sexually abused me. Reading that letter was like getting a message from my former self. And similarly, like that bottle, I traveled a great distance emotionally to arrive at a place where I was beginning to have a better sense of myself. By receiving that letter and returning it to me as a gift, the good priest reminded me how far I'd come. I didn't need a sign in order to find the right path, because I was on it all along.